My family was pretty, well, I was going to say risk tolerant, maybe risk encouraging. I used to do a lot of outdoor stuff, and I remember I would come home and say, I wanted to try and figure out how to rappel. So I put a rope up in a tree and kept rappelling down from a tree branch. And rather than my parents thinking I was crazy and discouraging me, would get excited and we all run outside and they'd watch me rappel from a tree. Ridiculously crazy. But it kind of, getting that encouragement early on, I think really kind of made me comfortable with the inherent risk taking that comes when you begin doing it at a bigger scale. And it turned out that the model that worked for me was mentoring. Because the thing that I've always loved, even from the very beginning, was that feeling where you're sitting around the table with the really smart people solving these really interesting puzzles. Mm-hmm. And now as a mentor, I get to do that. I get to come in and sit down with these really smart people and help them solve really interesting puzzles with the huge benefit that I get to go home at 5 o'clock. Yeah. And they have to stay up all night trying to solve the problem. You never really know which of the things you did worked or which ones were wrong but succeeded in spite of themselves, and you begin to realize how much of it's luck. And as you begin to get out and you begin to work with lots of companies, you begin to see the patterns emerging. Sure. So the really interesting thing for me over the last 15 years of working with, by now, probably hundreds of early stage entrepreneurs, and hearing countless pitches as kind of an angel investor, is that you begin to see what the common denominators are for early stage success. Sure. It's not something you can say, here's what to do. But these are approaches which are shared by a lot of successful companies. And then you can look back at your own career and go, oh, I can see how this thing I did totally inadvertently, totally without knowing what I was doing, was that the right thing at the right time in the right place? But the fundamental tenet that I believe is the key to culture is recognizing that culture is not what you say. Culture is not what you do. Your little culture deck doesn't mean anything. Your little 10 culture points that you post in the break room is bullshit. What you carve in your cornerstone doesn't count. The only thing that counts is how you act. And as anyone who has children quickly understands, people pay attention to what you do. They don't pay attention to what you say. And you brought up an interesting point too, which is that culture is not something that you create. You sit down and brainstorm what it should be. Culture usually springs organically from the behavior of the founders. How do they treat each other? How do they treat early decisions? How do they treat customers? How do they act? That's what culture is. The culture comes from who you hire, who you fire, and who you reward. And you can talk to your blue in your face how we embrace risk-taking here, and the way we're going to survive as a company is taking risks. But then you put at the company meeting, you reward your highest paid salesperson. That just sends a totally different message. You got to bring the person up and go, this month we're really recognizing this person who did this thing which didn't work. But they took this risk. They tried something that everyone said wouldn't work. Then everyone sees, wow, that they're sincere about this. They give this person more money. They don't go, we don't tolerate assholes and then promote the asshole. Yeah. They fire him, even though this person was key to the company. That sends the message. That cements culture. My motto is my money or my time, but not both. And there's a very, very specific reason for that. Again, I'm mentoring early stage companies, the friends and family round, Series A, Series B, and that's probably as far as it goes for me. And so I do take equity in the company, but I take common stock. Mm-hmm. So I'm aligned with the founder. Once you put money in the company, you're no longer aligned because your interests differ from the founder because you have preferred stock and they have common stock. Sure. When they come to you and say, what do we do? You want to be able to help them think it through without the tinge of, does this affect me differently than it might affect them? But it's also why, at least in Silicon Valley, the most stable configuration for a startup is 2 people, because you have people who together create a complete person.
Sure.
And that's a really, like, for just, even Reed Hastings and I, very, very different skill sets, but extremely complementary skill sets. And in a lot of ways, the success of Netflix comes from the fact that the two of us were there together. The world is changing, especially the internet, the effect the internet is having, which is that if people fall into the trap of thinking that the rest of the world is incapable of this or unable to do this, they haven't traveled enough. You just need to go to other countries to see how mass transportation should work, and you'll stop being quite so proud of us. You should look at their airports. You look at their education systems. Look at their healthcare systems. Look at the speed. Go to Hong Kong and see not now, but see the speed of the internet there. I mean,
yeah, it makes a lot to learn.
Wow, we have to be proud, but we can't let pride lead to complacency.